Good evening. Welcome again to our program, Women to Women. I'm Carol Paz, your hostess, and we're here with a very special lady tonight. But before I introduce her to you, I'd like to thank our sponsors for the first half of the program. Viva Basque, Deli and Cafe, right here in Carson City, home of Pete's famous Basque chorizo, and it is delicious. We'd also like to thank Carpa Nevada, LLC, importers of fine Portuguese olive oils, aged balsamic vinegar, and international health teas. And finally, but not last, we'd like to thank carsonnow.org. When you're looking 24/7 to find out what's going on in Carson City, that's the name to go on the website with, carsonnow.org. So it's my pleasure to welcome back Ann Bednarski. And Ann, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure, it's a pleasure. Now, I have to kind of let our audience out there know that this is not a program tonight. It's going to be, we're going to be talking about the core curriculum, the program that's sweeping across the nation nationally. And there's a lot of controversy. Ann and I are not going to be controversial with each other, etc. But we think that there are some important points that parents, grandparents, all of us as a nation need to pay some attention to. So Ann, I thank you for bringing concerns that you have, experiences that you have, and to kind of bring our audience up to date. You are a former teacher.
Yes.
You are a journalist.
Yes.
And you do special op-ed sometimes writings for various newspapers.
Yes.
Okay, and you bring this concern about Common Core, which, to tell you the truth, I'm an ex-teacher, okay, former teacher, retired teacher, and it was not on my windowsill, so to speak, of my classroom when I retired. But I've kind of kept interested in it, but not up to date. And I have found out that in the past 10 months, I really didn't know much about it at all. And I think that fuzziness, that fogginess, that frustration, that just not knowing really what it means is probably seeping into heavily our nation and our parents, our homes, our schools, even our teachers. Okay, so why do you bring this concern to the program?
Because my interest in Common Core, I had heard about it, I heard people don't like it, but I then watched a lecture by Dr. Terrence Moore from Hillsdale College.
In Michigan, okay.
Where he explained how backwards, behind closed doors, no teachers, no parents involved in
the writing of
it. And he said something about 15 minutes into his lecture, which was, he posed the question, what is the purpose of education? And I thought, wow, how would I answer that? What would I say about, and 10 minutes later he said, the purpose of education is happiness. And I thought, he's right, because as a teacher, when you have a struggling student, and even more particularly as a tutor, you get frustrated because they're not getting it, and all of a sudden the light goes on, and they're happy. And when you succeed at something, you're happy.
Right.
And when you grow with it. Right. So after that lecture, I, for the last 7 months, have done a very serious study on Common Core, what it's about, what we're doing, and I think we're going backwards.
Okay, now let me just interject here this thought too. As a teacher in a classroom for many, many years, and you can identify with this, I'm sure, when we have children moving about the country as we do, whether they're military families, whether their parents are changing jobs or looking for jobs, etc. Whatever the reason, I always found that in my classroom, children who came from certain states did not have the background in the language arts, English language arts, or in the mathematics or in the science areas, as well as my own students did. And then that shortcoming really made it difficult on them. So I think one of the objectives that Common Core perhaps has put out there, let's have uniformity. Or let's have the ability to be all 50 states organized with the same standards. How do you feel about that?
I actually think I think it's a good idea to have basic skills taught to and have standard. You will know this by the time you're out of first grade. You will know this when you're out of sixth grade. But because of the way Common Core is unraveling, some states started it a couple years ago. Some are and some
right
are.
Now there are 45 states who have bought into Common Core. Oklahoma, just this past June, opted out. Their governor decided to replace Common Core with academia, okay, or academic studies that are worked out by the state of Oklahoma.
And that's where the Constitution says it should be, because that's a state's right. And those 45 states, the caveat that no one knew about is if you don't adopt Common Core, we cut off your federal funding. So, and it was in Nevada, it was done backwards. The state board, the governor approved it. It didn't go to the legislature. Then the board went and said, will you please approve this? That's backwards.
Okay, now correct me if I'm wrong, but on some of the research I've done on Common Core, back in 2009, under the Obama administration, the race to the top was, I think, what they kind of called it, and it was for the betterment of education of all of our students. And that race to the top seemed like a really great idea. The federal government would take a lot of taxpayer, millions and millions of dollars.
Billions and billions.
Yes, to give to each state's education budget. But the condition was that if you took the money from the federal government, that you would also have to accept the Common Core curriculum as it was being written or as it was written, and anything else by Common Core that's being written coming down the road, which is the science program.
Right.
So now the states had not seen it, teachers had not seen it, governors of states had not seen it. So actually they bought into a program that they hadn't read or seen yet. Is that correct?
Exactly, and I would say anything I learned in school over and over again is don't sign up until you read the fine print. And this is exactly the opposite. The other problem is they have to retrain teachers to teach Common Core. And it should be basic. You go to school for 5 years at least to get a teaching credential. And now it's no good. And what they're doing in the classroom is, instead of me saying, as if you were my student, Carol, will you please do this? 4 people sit around a table, they're given a problem, and they have to reach consensus. And I studied, when I took on Common Core, first I studied language arts. And one of the first things I read within 2 weeks is a sentence given to kindergartners that said, fill in the blank. The sentence was, my mother blanked me to eat my breakfast. The choices were, my mother asked me, my mother begged me, and my mother nagged me. And the correct answer was nagged. And I thought, if my kindergartner came home and said, quit nagging me, Mom, that word was not in my house. But one of the things they're doing is they want to teach emotionally charged words that elicit a confrontation.
Right.
And now my grandson is going into first grade, and my son, he called me up. I answered the phone. He said, hi, Ma, I hate Common Core. And I said, why? And he said, well, his son has to do 15 tasks before he can say 2 + 2 equals 4. And he says, after 8 of them, he's frustrated.
And he
exhausted. Says, he told him, Dad, I know 2 + 2 is 4. I don't like this junk. And I'm upset as a grandparent that he has already an attitude. He does not like math. He doesn't want to go to school.
Okay.
And that's bad.
Okay, so Common Core, or CCSS, Common Core State Standards, like you say, is a constitutional right of the states.
Right.
And some of us among the American public feel that perhaps the federal government is federalizing education.
Absolutely.
Rather than allowing business leaders in a community, teachers, parents, a school board, a school district, superintendents, all to enter into this conversation and develop the curriculum that they want their students in this state to be able to pass. Now, during part of the research, this I didn't know, and it can be found online, okay, very quickly. But the Common Core has been with us now about 4 years. 2 years in a lot of these 45 states. And private schools, Catholic private schools, Protestant schools, homeschooled endeavors, okay, public schools all went for it, okay, because the federal money is so great. But Common Core was never voted on. It was not passed by Congress. The states were not consulted.
Exactly.
There was no teacher input. And therefore, as you have said, teachers need to be retrained, and the cost is very expensive. Now, in a proposition that has not been seen, and we don't have a lot of evidence or a lot of good factual information to come back and say this is working or this is not working. It's not been in existence that long, and it hasn't been practiced that long. So you do have parents in some states who say, we're going to opt our children out of taking those tests that come along with, because there's such a gap in between the grade levels. Let's say that in a state, Minnesota happens to be one of those states that has an excellent state program, especially in math. But some other states where core curriculum is presented in the first grade, but in the second grade, it's not as heavily done. So when they come to the third grade and they get these tests, they're almost smacked. And that was the term used by many teachers that I talked to. They're smacked with these tests at the first, third, and fifth grade levels when they haven't been prepared properly at the second and the fourth grade to take those tests.
And in Nevada, the state superintendent has exempted the freshman class of 2014 and 2015 don't have to take the test.
And let's come back to Nevada in the second half of our program, okay? Because we have an outstanding academic program here in Carson City, the capital, and yet the standards that are written for the state of Nevada might be a little bit vague. Okay, we'll be right back with this interesting conversation, the second half. Don't go away.
Hi, I'm Carol Howell. I'm here with a public service announcement for all Carson City voters. We're getting ready to have a Vote Smart Nevada debate. One on Friday, October 17th for all of our local candidates. The other on October 18th for our statewide candidates. These debates are nonpartisan and will be attended by both Democrats, IAPs, Independent American Party, and Republican candidates. We'll also be presenting questions from the audience, and you may submit your question in writing to our website at ccrccgop.com. This is your opportunity to learn not only about the candidates, but also about the ballot questions. There'll be presentations on all four, for both for and opposed. So you'll be able to go to the polls knowing what you're going to be voting for. This is your opportunity to vote smart.
Apex SCF provides cutting-edge, hands-on training that effectively addresses today's threats of violence.
The Apex Stay Alive course teaches proven methods for personal protection and attack countermeasures that can be applied in any environment. In your home, at the workplace, or on campus, Apex will teach you the necessary skills to stay alive, including how to recognize and react to an active shooter scenario.
If you knew you had to fight for your life tomorrow, would you train today? Contact us now to sign up for a class in your region.
I was 36, wanted to do something that was boldly different. We sold our house, drove west with the idea that we were going to be in the wine industry. We lived in a teepee for 2 months.
I mean, if you're going to do something, why not do it with your whole heart?
It's that creative outlet of being able to make something and make something that comes from the land. Bank of the West said, we have complete faith in your brand. Don't do anything to compromise it. Banks don't say things like that.
Come to the Carson Horseshoe Club for fun and friendly service. Play your favorite games. Join our Players Club, where you get cash for points plus food comps, and enjoy casual dining in our Lucky Horse Grill. Get it all in the heart of downtown Carson City at the family-owned, local favorite Carson Horseshoe Club.
Are you looking for a healthier lifestyle? A more nutritious diet? Do you care about quality? If your answer is yes, or if you are just curious, come into Villa Basque Deli and Cafe right here in Carson City, Nevada. Discover fine Portuguese extra virgin olive oils, vintage balsamic vinegars, and a wide assortment of international health teas provided by distributor Carpa Nevada LLC. In addition to these terrific items, Villa Basque is also the home of Pete's famous Basque chorizo, handmade on the premises from Pete's secret family recipe. Satisfy your culinary curiosities. Don't delay.
Welcome back to the second half of our program. We're here with Ann Bednarski, who is bringing us up to kind of a thinking level for all of us concerning our public education and as it deals with the core curriculum. So before we get back into our discussion, I'd like to thank our sponsors of the second half, the Carson Horseshoe Club, located right here in the downtown historic portion of the city. If you'd like to have a delicious breakfast or an interesting and delicious lunch, why not stop in and see their newly renovated dining area? We'd also like to thank Dr. Kent Gabriel, MD, noted plastic surgeon right here in Carson City. His specialty is microsurgery of the hands. And finally, but not least, we'd love to thank Bank of the West, that bank-friendly atmosphere that when you walk in, Bank of the West knows your name. So remember that. They're located right here in Carson City. All right. Well, Ann, let's return to our conversation. And you brought in what I think is a very interesting first paragraph I'd like to read to our audience out there. It's the ever-increasing burden on America's public schools. And the first paragraph reads as such: this is a story about America and America's public schools. Specifically, it's about how we as a society have changed what we ask our public schools to do. How we respond to this story will affect everyone's future, whether or not we have children in school, or even whether or not we have children. So why did
this thing was given out by a man named Jamie Vollmer, who came to give a positive pep talk first to the whole staff of Carson City School District,
okay,
and then another for the public. And he's not a teacher, he's not an administrator, he is a father, and he was a businessman. And I thought, I didn't agree with everything he said, but I thought that Mr. Stokes made an excellent choice in someone to rev up the group. And
we have to say here, with all total fairness, that Carson City has an outstanding academic program. They really shine. That's not necessarily true for the state of Nevada.
Absolutely not.
And I believe that Carson School District won a very prestigious award.
Carson City Schools won Race to the Top, and the prize was $10 million that they get.
Oh, my word.
$2.5 million for over 5 years.
And that was a national. That was the national.
And they were #1 in the United States.
That is,
so there is a
what a
great
accolade.
deal to be proud of and preserve. And I think Common Core, when we went to see Mr. Stokes to talk about Common Core, he, one of the things he said is he's had to pull the best teachers out of the class to go train the other teachers. And many people that I've talked to said they have a lot of substitutes.
Okay.
So I think who gets cheated? That's really basic. Anyway, one of the things, and I wanted to bring this because I'd love you to take a picture of it. Mr. Vollmer went through, I don't know if you, this is what has been added. And
I'll hold you talk.
well, one of the things he said, almost every edition, the public was unhappy. He also said 77% of the budget for public schools is paid for by people who have no children in school. And he is absolutely right. It's a community thing. Depending on your culture, your schools reflect the culture of the city. The last one of the things he said that I thought was very funny is he said, first we gave them breakfast, now we give them lunch, and we're on our way to raising our children. And that is one of my biggest objections, is parents are being shoved out of the picture. And I asked the question when I was there, I said, I got lost in Carson City, but I found myself following a school bus at 4:45 in the evening, and the kids who got off must have been kindergartners, no more than first grade. And they are so exhausted. And I think there's no time to be a parent when the kids go to school 7:30 or so. They get their breakfast, they stay, and they're coming home at 4:45, or they go from school to the Boys and Girls Club. And parents are not, there's no time to be.
Well, I think what you're bringing up here, Ann, is a situation where parents often feel they need to have two incomes coming into the house to be able to support their children. But, excuse me, it's also important to understand, and this is an old concept, that sacrifice is absolutely essential, okay, in raising a family. Sacrifices in so many areas of finances and of housing, of clothing, etc. But are we also, can we ask the question, and therefore since we don't want to sacrifice, it seems the more older we become as a society, then are we asking our children, our teachers, our public schools to not sacrifice as well? In other words, if we keep changing programs every 10 years, or we keep changing programs, there's an argument to be said, change brings change, okay? However, there are fundamentals that every child, every home group are nurtured by, and stability is one of them. Knowing that you can go from one grade level to the next grade level with success is a big thing to a kid.
Well, one of the things he said in his talk is, we've lived through 40 years of failed programs. He predicted Common Core would be just another one. But the cost is astronomical, and the results are, no one knows. Bill Gates himself said it's going to take 10 years before we know if this works. And
the fact that you brought up Bill Gates' name, I just want to share this with our audience as well. Bill and Melinda Gates have a huge, financial foundation, as we're all aware of, and they gave $150 million from this foundation to 5 people to write the curriculum. The head of that curriculum writing group was David Coleman. And David is not an English teacher, okay? But he and these other 4 cohorts are members of a social club in Washington, D.C. that mainly reaches out to lobbyists, etc. So they, with $150 million, wrote the curriculum. Now, Bill Gates himself wound up by spending $2.5 billion of his own money in order to get this core curriculum developed. And it was basically done, like we said before, without the acknowledgement or consent of Congress, kind of done behind closed doors in secret. So we don't have a big impact. And my question is an American billionaire, are we going to hold him responsible for writing our national educational curriculum?
And I think absolutely not.
No. So
we elect people to represent us, and there's very little sign here that they don't even know we're here in Carson City. It's
well, to hand off our national responsibilities as citizens of a country who really want our kids to succeed, to make their place in the world, and then to make our lives all better because of their contributions, okay? That competition, that advantage that Americans have enjoyed, we want to keep it going, we really do. So I don't know that it's a responsible thing at all on our part to turn over our educational system to individuals who don't include, that group doesn't include teachers from the classroom.
That's right.
With the experience, the background, administrators on the other side of the coin, the business community who knows, okay, what skills they need, etc. And parents, that school board, that school district, and the parents need to have a say. So that's, the controversy could be coming because it seems so federalized. It seems taken out of the grassroots level.
I see it. That's right. It's not it's not in the states. It was done very secretively, and it's another invasion, in my mind, of rights. And the state, well, you know, you said 45 states signed up for. 22 of those states are now trying to opt out of the testing.
Okay, and this will be an interesting struggle, won't it?
And it's too bad because we have so much technology. We have so much more than we had when I was in school. And I think we're abusing it, and we're abusing our children. They're now expect handouts. Everything, we're going to take care of everything. I would love to see teach the kids to read, teach them to add, teach them history, and get out of the sexual business and the drug business and the...
Okay, we're going to have to kind of bring our conversation to wind it down here, but we hear what you're saying. And we appreciate your efforts, Anne, on attending all of these functions to bring this information back to us. And I would simply encourage our listening audience, whether you have children or not, whether you're young, middle-aged, or older.
You're paying for it.
Yeah, you're paying for it. That's exactly right. You're paying for it. So find out what's going on and become involved, because it's not just your future, it's our future, okay? And it's a national future. So thank you for tuning in tonight. And as always, thank you so much, Anne, for being with us. And we'll be back next week with a brand new lady. So in the meantime, take care. Have a good evening. Good night.
Hi, I'm Roy Halliday. As pet owners, we can help end the suffering of millions of dogs and cats. Animal shelters struggle to assist in huge numbers of animal litters. Many more suffer on the streets, never even reaching the safety of a shelter. My family does our part in making sure our pets are spayed and neutered. For more information, contact my friends at the Humane Society of the United States. Remember, pets are for life.
More homes are being threatened by wildfire than ever before.
At the National Weather Service, we anticipate critical fire weather conditions and issue red flag warnings. Red flag days occur when conditions are ideal for ignition and rapid spread of wildfire.
Please report smoke or unsafe activity by quickly calling 911, and don't assume someone already has.
Stay informed by frequenting weather.gov/Reno or following us on Facebook and Twitter.